You're listening to Them Three, a podcast that inspires people to be themselves while living life on purpose with purpose.
We're the McCleskeys, two brothers.
And a sister.
Raised by the same parents, generations apart.
When getting spanked wasn't considered abuse.
It should have been.
And when riding the bus without seatbelts was fun. Join us as we inspire siblings like ourselves to have more effective communication within their own family units.
You be you.
And inspire others to do the same.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Welcome everyone to Them Three Podcast. I'm Stacy McCleskey. Let my brothers introduce themselves.
And I am Tim Jr. They call me Tim Bone. I am the eldest.
You always talking about he the eldest.
And I'm Bill Lee McCleskey. What up?
And we were just talking about, peeing on our feet to help with athletes' feet.
We weren't talking about it. We was talking about it, But okay, so here's the question. Where now is the container that held your pee?
Of pee.
Oh man, now this was like over 10 years ago. So this was when I was married the first time. Okay.
Well, I mean,
may have something to do with why that didn't work out. I don't know.
Oh my God.
No, I'm just joking. But so I don't know where that pan is. That pan is long gone. But no, I mean, this is a home remedy. You can look it up. You can probably even ask your doctor. I'll tell you. I'll tell you one more thing about urine. Just since we're on the subject, and I'll just school you guys a little bit more furthermore. So y'all know that the boxer Pacquiao. Y'all ever heard of him?
Oh yeah.
So it recordedly, he used to, when he was preparing for a fight, he would drink his urine in order to conserve the nutrients in his body. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's a proven fact though too. I mean, if you get trapped in anywhere and you run out of water, drink your pee. It's recycling your
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out if you get lost somewhere. First of all, that's why there's just some places I just don't go because I don't need to allow myself the opportunity to get lost. But I mean, you got to be in a certain mental state, I think, to actually ingest your urine.
You've never tried your pee, Tim?
Oh my. No, Stacy. Have you?
Well, here's the thing, because Billy you told me this story a while back, and so I was like,
that's what happens when you listen to the middle brother, the middle child.
Honestly though, I felt like this jolt of energy throughout the day.
Oh,
I think it was
Wait. We missed a little part. What did your brother tell you?
You told me about you told me about the boxer. You told me about you told me everything you just told us on the podcast. And so one day I had a sip. It wasn't like I was like guzzling it down.
You sipped your pee?
Yeah. I mean, I drink close to a gallon of water a day. So like my pee is pretty clear.
Oh, okay.
It's not like I don't eat red meat. I don't eat pork. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying my pee is better than everybody else's pee. I'm just saying it was.
Okay, so
you trying to clean it up though.
When you drank the pee and it went down your throat, did you think, okay, I gotta quickly brush my teeth? Did I need to gargle, or did you just go on about your day and just drink something else?
I think I might have had a water chaser. I can't remember. This was like 2 years ago.
I mean, you put a little sugar in it, you might be all right. You know what I'm saying? It might
tastes like lemonade.
Ooh, wow.
But you had a little burst of energy.
But it ain't gonna hurt you though. I mean, that's right. That's true. It ain't gonna hurt you. It just seems nasty because most times, your pee is yellow. Most times y'all's pee is yellow. So you know what I'm saying?
My pee ain't yellow.
Well, yellow. Maybe he said it seems nasty. No. It's nasty.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it just depends on who you ask. I mean,
well, what else are you tasting? I mean,
Oh no, we don't know. No. No.
I don't know if we want to go there right now. But how are y'all today? Outside of us talking about pee.
Man, I'm good. I'm doing really good. The Super Bowl is tonight,
Mm-hmm.
and they say that 100 million people will watch the Super Bowl. So I am excited for this game because there's two good teams, two good quarterbacks playing against each other. So I'm excited about that. But I'm feeling good, man. I've actually been stretching a lot because I've been running a lot. And so my body feels good. I might go running after we record this podcast, actually. But no, I've been busy and been good. So what about y'all? What's up?
Tell them what's going on.
Oh man, you know what? So we do this accountability call with Bill and some other people, and you said one thing that I think has been resonating with me all week. What am I capable of? And for me, I say, what am I capable of today? And I remember, I'm trying to get back into my workout myself. Since, we've moved, they have in the farmhouse, which is kind of like the community center place for the neighborhood where they got the pool and everything. So they got a nice little gym set up. So I started doing more than what I'm used to doing, just really kind of pushing myself. And I tell you what, I just feel better. Mentally, I have more clarity. And of course, when I'm in the gym, I listen to, these podcasts, or I'll listen to these different sermons from different preachers just to get myself mentally and spiritually where I want to be. And it just feels good. And it helps me to understand what I'm really capable of physically. So I started reading more, spending more time just delving in. I'm reading a book called Kingdom Man.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just talking about being the kind of man that and husband that God would have us to be. And I'm recognizing how accountable I have to be, not only to myself, to my son, to my wife. And it's just making me more aware of my responsibilities, but that I don't have to do it by myself. I think a lot of times we get so inundated with thinking, okay, it's up to me. If it's going to be, it's up to me. Well, it don't have to be just up to you. We always have these circle of influences, and we can use those influences to help us. So the week has been great. I'm actually looking forward to this week. It's actually lighter for me work-wise, so I can spend more time reading. But Billy, I'm going to do one of these things that, I send out a lot of emails to my clients. I'm going to double that this week and really see. You said something Friday on the accountability call. Hey, what happens when you make a lot of sales, a whole lot of sales? What caused you to be able to make those sales? And it's all this momentum that you built. I said, well, let's do that all over again. Mm-hmm. Last week I had 32 appointments. What if I had 32 appointments every week?
Yeah.
There's no telling what could be accomplished when I have that every single week. So I'm excited, just to get that moving. And I talked to my wife about it so she can keep me accountable to what I need to do. So I'm looking forward to it. Last week was great, preparing me for this. Well, what about you, Miss Stace?
There's always something in there.
There's something back there.
Need a little pee. But
oh wow.
My week was great. It has been snowing here a lot. Snow here Monday, Tuesday, it's snowing again today. It's really beautiful. I love the snow. And it warms up when it snows. So we all appreciate that. I started working on this project that's going to be on Zoom Live this Thursday. It's called On Love, written by a wonderful playwright named Infiniso. And it's 8 vignettes within one piece. And it's about love, different forms of love. And so—
What's a vignette?
Vignette's like a little small, honestly, I don't know the proper definition, but I would describe it as a one act or a one scene within a play that you might do.
Okay.
So I think all in all, it'll last maybe an hour, but you can check that out. It's MCC Theater company here in New York City. And so that's called On Love. So I've been rehearsing for that and preparing for that. But other than that, just doing my own other creative projects and try not to get COVID.
Hey.
And dressing my dog up and making her sing songs with me.
Oh my, that is so funny. I know. Flowers is she's so tired. I'm tired.
She's tired, but she has a great life. So, and you know what's crazy? I recorded this video of me because like some outfits came up during the week that I had gotten that I actually forgot I bought. And when I opened them up, she gets so excited. She's jumping up. She's trying to get in the outfit by herself. And then she's just like, okay. I think it's because every time I put something on her, we go outside. So she likes to go out.
Oh,
so
yeah.
she's, like, so where we going? And I'm like, girl, we're going to the living room to spin in a circle. And so I can sing loud in your ear. Get ready.
Now, the glasses that you put on, were those real small glasses or did you just make them in aluminum foil?
I made them out of aluminum foil.
That was so funny. Oh my goodness. That was hilarious.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's cool. You talking about COVID though, Stacy. I know here in Tennessee, schools are opening back up in Davidson County in the Nashville area. And a lot of folk are, they're ready to go back to school. Kids are ready to go back. Some kids are ready to go back. I know a lot of parents are, but then you got those like me. My son is not going back. He's gonna be at the house. I'm just not, I get it, but you're dealing with so many different personalities, so many different mindsets, belief systems. And then some people they need their kids to be in school because they need to work.
Yeah.
And so I try to understand that balance, and it's got to be challenging for Dr. Battles, who's the
superintendent of schools.
Superintendent for Metro schools. So it's got to be hard for her. But then, the caveat is if you get teachers, and my wife and I were talking about this, if you get teachers that end up getting COVID, then you got to quarantine all the students that were in the class.
Yeah.
But now they back home.
Yeah.
Now you got a shortage of teachers because you got folk, they like, I'm not going in there to substitute because they got a shortage of teachers right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there is a happy balance. I think you let the ones go that want to go, and then the ones that want to stay home stay.
I think I was talking to a friend earlier because we were talking about our business coming back, shows coming back this fall and how they might do it. And I was saying, in Australia, they've opened up theaters. In certain parts of Asia, they've opened up theaters. They figured it out. In certain parts of London, how come they can't figure it out here? And I think the root of the problem in America is America's not a country where people follow or pay attention to the rule. If the government had shut down the country at the start of this last year, we could have slowed down the virus and contained it a little bit better. And of course, I think would people have still passed on from the virus? Yes, probably. But it could have contained it a little bit better. But the problem is you have so many people talking about, I want to get a haircut. I want to do this. I want to do that. And so I think because that never happened, now it's like we're playing catch up. America's playing catch up. And so we're always going to be doing this starting and stopping with this virus unless our government from the top down says, boom, we're putting this into effect. Everyone has to abide by. Here's what happens if you don't, and people can protest and march if they want to, but this is about saving lives and making sure people are able to get back to work safely and kids are able to go to school safely. But we need some leadership as far as this virus is concerned, and we haven't had that. So I'm hoping with this new administration, they can be good leaders across the board, but especially for this pandemic, for this crisis, for this virus.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
It'll happen. Yeah, go for it.
So I have a question for y'all, and this is, we getting into it, y'all.
You're smiling. So, okay.
We are generations apart. Tim, you and I are 13 years apart. Billy, you and I are 8 years apart. You two are 5 years apart. We were raised by a preacher, civil engineer, and an educator, right? So I want to talk about the talk. I want to talk about the talk. Look at Tim Vaughn's face. He's like,
you want to talk about the talk?
The talk. The talk.
What's the talk?
The talk. Okay. So the talk of sex.
Yeah.
The talk of sex. You guys are guys, right? And I'm a woman.
You guys are guys.
You guys are guys. And I know what, as far as the experience was for me with mom and dad, but I want to know, the viewers want to know, the listeners, what was the experience like for you guys talking about the talk? How did that inform you, the information they gave you, your life, as far as how you went out into the world when you looked for a partner or a mate, or were you just out there willy-nilly, you know? How young were you? How did it make you feel? And you both have kids too. So like, have you had the talk with your kids? When is it too young? You know, when are they too young to have this talk of sex?
Yeah.
As some people call the birds and the bees, which I always thought was the dumbest thing. Birds and the bees, you know.
I'm tripping because you answered a lot of questions, you know. But I think we should start with a story.
Okay.
And you know, Tim and I, we used to share a room. I don't know if you remember that, upstairs. We shared a room, and the bedroom was right across from mom and dad's room.
Wow, we were there. Okay.
Yeah. So you know, at night, sometimes we would hear these noises, you know, and we didn't hear two people. I didn't, but I would hear one person, you know, and at a climactical, is that a word?
I don't know.
I would hear one person. I would hear dad, you know, and as I don't know how old I was, but initially I wouldn't pay attention to it. But then Tim would educate me on these things, right?
Oh gosh.
You know, he would educate me. And by the way, side note, I think it is healthy for children to overhear, maybe by accident, their parents having sex. Okay. I think it's actually healthy. You know, because when you grow up and you look back, you say, yeah, that was healthy, you know, and because there's so many other things that they could be doing. But I would hear that and like we would make fun of it. But I think that, you know, just kind of throwing it out there, if we overheard our parents having sex, that's funny that we're actually talking about that, because that wasn't even your question. But what, you know, it was hilarious. But even as a teenager, I felt loved because they were loving each other, you know. Now, when it comes to the talk, for me, I remember dad talking to me and Tim about sex, and it came from two different perspectives. You know, as a preacher, he would say, you need to be able to control yourself until you get married, you know. But I always remember him saying, but if you can't control yourself, you need to use protection, you know, so that you don't get a young lady pregnant or to prevent yourself from getting a disease, you know. And I remember one time I don't know why, I had a ton of condoms in one of my drawers. I had probably like 15 condoms in my drawer. I don't know if they used to give them away at school or something, but I had all these condoms in my drawer. And my dad had gone through my drawer for some reason. Dad went through my drawer, and then he came to me, he said, why you got all these condoms? And I said, well, you said if I can't control myself, use protection. And he said, well, you ain't supposed. I said, I'm not like having sex, but you said if I can't control myself. And he had taken the bag of condoms out, but then I noticed that he put them back. He put them back in the drawer. You know what I mean? And then the other thing about that too, about the talk, was I appreciated dad talking to me and my friends about it. He was very open with me and my friends. I remember, you know, y'all remember like Victor Bowie and John Royal and Anthony, you know, they would come to the house and we would hang out or play ball, whatever. And he would walk into the room or the den or wherever we were hanging out. And he would say, how are you guys? How y'all doing? What's going on? All right, good. How's school? Okay. How are y'all controlling yourself with these young ladies? You know, I mean, he would
so
just
random though to like go in like that.
Yeah.
And then it would get quiet. And then Victor, you know, he was crazy. He'd say something like lotion, you know. But I specifically remember my dad's reaction to that. He's like, well, that's one way. That's one way you can, you know. But I mean, he would always talk to us about it. Because at the end of the day, I think he realized, of course, we're teenagers. You just horny little rabbits running around here and you thinking about it. You see these little girls, you know, So we might as well be talking about it so that you can understand it. And I'll let y'all jump in, but I'll talk about what I did with Miles too.
Well, wait, so mom never talked to you guys about sex?
Well, for me, I don't remember mom specifically talking to me about sex. Now, it may have been like a surface conversation, like, you know, that little girl, she kind of fast, you need to leave her alone, something like that. But, you know, not specifically talking about sex. No, I don't remember that.
Billy is spot on that. I do remember just that conversation, and it was twofold. You know, you need to contain yourself. You know, it's a sin to have sex outside of marriage. But if you can't contain yourself, and his words were, you need to wear a condom. And I used to be like, what is a condom?
I remember condom.
A condom. Wow.
I knew he meant a condom, but I'm like, he would say condom.
Yeah. Not like, if okay. it's a sin, but if you can't control yourself.
Yeah.
But if you can.
Wow.
If you can. And you know what? We didn't understand. I think as adults now, we have a better understanding of how the mind and the body, the flesh just works, and it just wants what it wants. And it's more challenging when you put yourself in that position. It's just that much more challenging. So he understood that already as an adult, but he probably couldn't help us to really understand it from that perspective. I think, but I think I didn't even start having sex till I was grown, till I was an adult.
Simbo.
Grown what? Like 12 ain't grown? You talking about?
I did not have sex until I was an adult. I was 18.
Okay.
I was an adult. I was a legal adult. And it was funny because the older I got and I would make mention of that and people were like just shocked. Really? I'm like, yeah. I mean, because when we grew up, we had, you know, the distractions kids have now is social media, and you can see just everything.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we had friends. We went out and ran up down the street and played and rode bikes and did all this stuff. And even though we would like girls, at that point in my life, girls just didn't really talk about, they didn't push the envelope. Nowadays, I hear stories that sometimes girls are the aggressors. they want what they want. But we just didn't have that kind of conversation. I remember a young lady I was dating. I was a senior in high school and I had graduated. And she and one of her friends, a friend drove her over to the house. It was like 8, 9 o'clock at night. And she didn't come to the front door. I snuck out the sliding door and just went out and talked to him. And it was dark outside. You know, we under the street light talking. And we just talked for probably a couple of hours. 6 or 7 years later, we reconnected. And she told me that she wanted to have sex. That was supposed to be my graduation gift.
Not your gift.
She told me she wanted, but my mind wasn't there.
Yeah,
I didn't think about, let me try to sneak her in the house. Let me take her around the back.
That come out to years later.
Somewhere in the car. My mind, and she didn't do anything to make me think. I mean, we may have had a couple of pecks on the cheek and we held each other, but there was nothing.
Under the street light.
Street light.
You know, but there was nothing that made me think this is my opportunity. You know, so I think the environment we grew up in led us to recognize there's so many other opportunities we have to use our minds in so many different areas. We were busy with sports. I was in the band. Billy was busy with doing other things, civic things. I was in an organization called Inroads. It was an organization for minorities interested in business and engineering. Does that mean, and girls were around, but our minds were focused on so many different things. And I think if you open yourself up with a blank canvas, people can dump all kind of stuff in your mind. And next thing you know, this is what you got. This is what's available to you.
But Stacy, what happened with you?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Uh-oh.
You know, growing up, y'all know that I was just like a little horny rabbit, I felt like.
Really?
We didn't know that.
I remember
horny rabbit.
I didn't understand what it was, but I remember like I would just be humping the side of the couch or, you know, a stuffed animal or I don't know. And I remember Dad would walk past my room and he'd be like, Stacy, go wash your hands. I do remember that. nobody ever explained to me like, okay, you were doing this and this is why your body is feeling like this and blah, blah, blah. And I was young, I was a kid, you know, and with mom being an educator, you would think, right, that she would be like, okay, but no one didn't. And to be honest with you guys, no one had the talk with me, not a soul. Nobody talked to me about sex at all. I remember, I don't know. I just liked everybody. I was attracted to everybody.
I don't know about that, Stacy. I think I remember hearing mom talk to you about sex.
I don't remember a conversation about sex with her.
Okay.
Now tell me about this conversation, because maybe you can jog my memory.
No, I just for some reason I remember like walking by your room and mom was in there saying, you know, this is your body and nobody's supposed to touch it, and this is your private area and blah blah blah. And I was just like, oh, okay, they having a talk. And I just walked on past, you know.
You probably didn't think about that in terms of sex.
Yeah. But you were also really young too.
I was probably really too young.
Just development. You were just thinking about
maybe she was just like, nobody's supposed to touch this without your permission, blah blah blah. I don't know. I can't even remember that, but I do remember exploring my body very young and understanding certain feelings. I shouldn't say understanding, realizing that the body gives off certain feelings, but I didn't understand what that meant. And I honestly didn't understand. I didn't understand what that meant until I was a little older. But yeah, mom and dad didn't talk to me about sex. I mean, you guys being so much older than me, I remember watching movies with you guys and seeing certain things. I remember watching award shows and seeing certain artists performing and thinking, wow, that's really provocative. And I knew what that word was because of New Jack City, which I saw when I was 4 years old. But learning about sex for me, I was kind of from friends and living out on my own and figuring it out myself. Now, later in life, I was able to go to both mom and dad and talk about sex and things that I had experienced and whatnot. But my exploration of sex was very me figuring it out on my own. And I think it was very scary, to be quite honest, because, you know, as a woman, there's all these stereotypes put on you already. You know, to hear that mom said, don't mess with that girl because she a little fast. You know, you dress a certain way, you're put in a box and people are looked at you like you might be promiscuous or that you might be fast or easy or whatnot. And so I just kind of had to go out there and do it. I don't know. And we've talked about this a little bit with I've talked about it a little bit with you guys, but I'm stammering a little bit.
You have?
Yes.
Okay, I don't remember. I don't remember.
I do. Stacy and I have had conversations.
Okay, maybe it was you too.
Yeah, we've had conversations, but I think it's important and it's healthy to have those conversations with your children. I agree with one thing Bill said. It was healthy for us to hear our parents. Now, wait. Wait.
Healthy. I mean, sure. Okay. But sometimes you don't want to hear that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you never want to hear it.
I mean, I remember one time I was visiting home and I heard it, and I remember texting y'all in the middle of the night, like, somebody come get me. That's before the down.
But how old were you?
I was grown. I was visiting.
Yeah. But that's a
visitor.
I think when we
you were downstairs and they were upstairs. They were that loud.
No. That's before the
I'm just playing. They were like, ooh, like that.
No, but I think when I think of it, the health part of it is you recognize your parents care for each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the healthy.
No, I know.
Hearing them arguing, you could be hearing them cussing each other out, or there's a fight going on in the next room, and you got to hear that at night when you're trying to go to sleep.
Right. Exactly.
Versus the other, and it makes you giggle, and you're like, oh, that's that. But you recognize that's the wholeness of a family. That's something you would expect between a husband and a wife.
Yeah.
And so you have that future expectation to have that same experience with your mate. Now, what may not have been as healthy for me was the visual at 12
Oh,
on a Sunday afternoon.
My God.
And Bill and
It's
I
always a
had
Sunday.
bunk beds.
my.
And I don't know why I needed to say something to my parents, but I just decided to go, and I didn't
You
knock.
nosy, you didn't need to go in there.
I didn't knock. I wasn't used to knocking. I just, went in the room, and the visual just, my heart. I just turned around and walked back.
Hey, that was the education right there.
Woo, that was
Hey,
it.
but you know what? There was also, I can't say his name, but there was a neighbor that we had back in the day. He had a satellite. Back in the day, we used to have those big satellites in your yard. And if you were a neighbor in a certain vicinity, you could pick up the channel that they were watching. And we used to pick up the channel that he was watching. And he was watching a lot of porn. So we could turn to the channel at certain times of the night and like see porn, and wee hours of the morning. And I can remember when I first saw that, I didn't even know what it was. When I first saw that. And I was like, what? And I remember going to Tim. I went upstairs. I went to Tim. I said, man, guess what I just saw on TV? He's like, yeah, I seen it before. He rolled back over and went to sleep. You know what I'm saying? But I think that, like Tim was saying, it's so important. I'm going to tell you what I do with Miles, what I have done with Miles, my son. I am so like transparent and honest and upfront with him, because it hit me one time. Me and Kim were getting dressed in the bedroom, and Miles knocked on the door, and I said, Miles, you can't come in right now. Kim is getting dressed. And he said, well, you in there. Why can't I come in there? I was like, what? He don't understand, So the next time we were alone, I think we were in the car driving somewhere, I just started talking to him about sex. Do you know how a baby is born? Do you know a woman gets pregnant? How long is she pregnant? Do you know how she got pregnant? And I said, Miles, this is what happens. And I explained it to him as simple as I could, but I was very direct. You have this organ, a woman has this, it goes inside, blah, blah, blah. Miles said, well, wouldn't that hurt? I said, no, it gets wet. It gets moist.
Always.
Oh, Lord. But I'm explaining all of this to them. I remember telling some of my friends, Miguel and them, and they were cracking up laughing. But I also knew that Miles was getting a quote unquote sex education at school. His little friends was telling him stuff at PE and all this stuff. I said, no, I told Miles, I said, the reason I'm telling you this is because I know you're going to hear all these ideas out there, but what I'm going to tell you is the truth. You ever got a question about something related to that, you can come to me. I'm going to tell you the deal. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important for two reasons, obviously for sex education, but also to know that he has confidence in his dad or in his family to know that, hey, I can go and get the absolute truth from my parents, and they're not going to try to sugarcoat it or, put a facade up or whatever. I'm going to be real with you.
So that I can appreciate that, because, my circumstance with Rowan was a little unique in that, his mom and I, once we divorced, she lives in a whole different place. And I'm not sure how she may, express sexuality to him. So she and I had a conversation. She was like, well, you tell him. I don't want to tell him nothing. I was like, oh okay, fine. Because I wanted to know her route, her perspective, so I can know how to address things with him. One of the things that a good friend of mine told me, she said, always allow the Bible to be what guides you. Because when you have two homes, and in this case, you have two homes, my home, and then with his mom, even though he spends the majority of time with me, you allow God's word to be what guides you. And I tell Rowan a lot of times, here's what the Bible says. And then I try to break it down in everyday terminology. And I told him, I said, now your friends and social media and TikTok, you're going to see a lot of different things that may not agree with your dad. But God's word is always true. That's my route. God's word is always true. Even if I could be wrong, God's word is true. So Rowan is like, and I have to recognize the kids hear everything you tell them, even though they might not act like they're paying attention in the moment. Mm-hmm. So one day Rowan said, so you and my mom, so his mom and I physically split up the year he was born. Mm-hmm. When he was 3 months old, she moved out. So he never experienced us being together ever. So I talked to him about, husband and a wife. That's when, I said, here are the rules. You go to school, you get your education, you get a job, you buy a house, you get married, then you have kids. I mean, this is how we're going to do this. And so he was like, so you and my mom were never married. I said, no, we were married. He said, but y'all weren't married when you had me. I said, no, we were married when we had you. We were actually still married. And what I'm learning is he's picking up certain things and he's learning things based on what I show him. So I think it's so valuable that we have these conversations over and over and over again, because where they are today, they're not going to be a year from now. Right. They're going to learn so much information, and they're going to have to know how to disseminate and decipher all of this information and what they need to retain. So it's incumbent upon us, I think, as fathers, first and foremost, to tell them what is right and what is true. So they'll be able to decide, okay, here's what I'm going to choose to believe. They're going to believe what they want to believe. But if we don't tell them what's right and what's true, the world's going to tell them what to believe.
Right. And they're getting more information even nowadays from the world than they are from us, because they're getting on social media. They're getting it from their friends every single day. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Whereas we're not talking about that every day. So
right. Yeah.
Always a challenge.
That's true. Now I will say this though, Stacy. Mm-hmm. Rowan thinks the only reason you have sex is to get pregnant. That's where his mind is right now. He thinks so he's like, what's wrong with you and Deborah? I know the only reason y'all always have. So he thinks when we're laughing in the bedroom, he thinks we're having sex. He thinks after and he laughed.
Y'all laughed 5 times today.
So he's like, he said, Dad, one day he was like, Dad, your sperm just slow. So I mean, that's where his mind is. He's like, I was the winner. I won. I'm here.
Oh my gosh.
But that's the innocence of it. And I appreciate him having that innocence, because I have heard horror stories of kids who are in their preteens and they out there getting it in. I mean, I'm like, what in the world?
Yeah.
So
no.
I mean, I couldn't have imagined being a teenager having sex. I was too focused on, like, I don't know, story time, making an outfit. It just wasn't my bag, that, thinking about actually having sex. But I was, like I said, I was a horny rabbit, but I didn't want to share, I guess, my body with anyone else specifically.
Yeah.
I remember Mom saw me kissing a friend of mine in the backseat of the car. And I feel like this is the only conversation.
When you were in high school?
I was in junior high school.
What?
And it went on for a while, for weeks, because Mom would drive my friend home, and I remember her saying to me, okay, you're exploring, you're figuring things out and whatnot. But that was it. We just never had the conversation. We never had the talk. Mm-hmm. I always wonder why too, now that I'm almost 37, I always wonder, like, why didn't they sit down and say, well, this is how, from any standpoint, with me,
Yeah. I think sometimes, like, it's tough being a parent, because, our parents, I think, are very direct, but at the same time, they don't like confrontation. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you don't want to open Pandora's box, so to speak, but you think, okay, I'm doing the right thing because I'm an example, and we go to church, and I go to work every day, and I come home every night, and, see the us arguing as mother and father or whatever, so you think, okay, everything is cool. But I think that us knowing that we got all of this other information, and maybe they related it to them growing up, where when they were growing up, they didn't get all this. They wasn't inundated with TV or the internet or whatever. Whereas when we're growing up, now we got a million TV channels. They only had one growing up, two channels, if they had a TV.
Right.
So with us growing up, we got a ton of TV channels. We have friends who are exposed to a lot more, and then we're hearing all this information. And now it's even worse with our children. They got, all these social media platforms. So we just have to be intentional, about discussing this on a consistent basis. And I'm gonna tell you, because when I was in the 5th grade, I had this little girlfriend. Her name was Sonia, and Sonia Clayton Patterson.
You remember her whole name? Wow.
Oh man, Sonia. We went to high school together too. But she was my girlfriend in the 5th grade. I was 10, and she said one day, after school, let's kiss. And I was like, all right, cool, let's get a kiss in. And after she was taller than me, and after school I had to stand on my trumpet case. I played the trumpet in the band in 5th grade. I had to stand on my trumpet case to meet her eye level. And I went in for my sugar, and my lips were like this, and her mouth was open. And I was like, what is your mouth open for? You know what I'm saying? She was trying to get some tongue, and I didn't know what French kissing was. You know what I'm saying? But she taught me though. You know what I mean? And I think that's what happens. We learn on the job training, versus getting that education from a firm foundation. So that's the key, man. We just have to. I remember back in the day, we had sex education classes at church. Well, we attend church. I don't know if you remember that, Tim. I was probably in junior high school, maybe. But I mean, we had a whole series of classes, and different teachers would come in and talk about sex education. It was all about sex education.
Wow.
STDs, sexual organ, all of this stuff back in the day. And I just wonder why they stopped doing that. But I remember it being very entertaining, but very educational too. I mean, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think that's, I'm sorry, Stacy, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say that I think you're right. Especially with children, I think this is something we have to talk about constantly, because I think it's so in Black communities, sex, we don't talk about it enough. It seems so taboo, especially like in religious environments. But you said that they taught sex education. They didn't do that when I was growing up there, because I would have had a lot of extended questions and they would have been really shook. But
that's probably why they stopped.
but I think it's important, because it's almost as if people are afraid. Like you said, maybe mom and dad didn't want to open Pandora's box with me or whatever that may mean. But I think it's important, because when you do become an adult and you say, well, this is what I like, this is who I like, I'm going to go out here and do this, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, it can be very scary and confusing at times for you. So I think as a community, a collective community, we have to be more open to talk about sex, from all standpoints. But what were you going to say, Timbo?
Well, I'm just thinking, it can be challenging when you talk to children. Like you're saying, well, maybe why wouldn't mom talk to us? Why would dad only leave it to two extremes? To some people, it might be considered two extremes. But I consider there are a couple of scriptures in the Bible that kind of maybe lend to why people really don't want to talk about it, because everybody's had their own experience. As an adult, you already have a certain mindset about sex, and it's based on your life's experience, what you've been taught, what you've experienced, and you got some emotions behind that. So then you think about your child. If it's a daughter, you're going to think one way. If it's a son, you're going to think one way. But in Ephesians 6:4, the Bible says, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger. And that's just exacerbating them, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Now, that's one piece. But then another one in Colossians 3:21 says, fathers, do not provoke or irritate or exacerbate your children. And so they will not lose heart and become discouraged or unmotivated. So it's like you trying to find a balance as a parent I don't want to tell my son, you can't be on TikTok. Because they're crazy on TikTok. You can't be on YouTube.
They're crazy on all social media platforms.
He'll be sitting in the back seat and he's listening to something, and these guys, these adults, are playing Fortnite, right? Or they're talking about these, but then a curse word pops out. I'm like, cut it off. And he gets it because I've explained, I don't want you listening to something where somebody is comfortable using profanity. And somebody might argue, but Tim, he's going to always hear profanity. Yes, but if he can be in my presence and I allow certain behaviors, then to him, he's going to think it's normal, it's okay, there's nothing wrong with it. So there's no balance between right, wrong, good, and evil. There has to be a balance, but then I always go to him and say, and I've showed him scriptures about why we speak a certain way, what we should do, what we shouldn't do, and why. Ultimately, he's going to have to make a decision, but I want to give him enough information so he can make the best choice. Zig Ziglar said it best. You can't change people's minds, but you can give them information, new information, so they can make a new decision.
Right.
And people cannot make decisions because they don't know what information they're supposed to use.
Right.
They get inundated with everything, all day, every day, just so much different. So you know how they make their choices? Based on how they feel.
Hey, that's it. That's it. And that's what, and when it comes to sex, that's what you don't want to do. You know what I mean? You do not want to, because you're going to get horny, you're going to get aroused, you're going to be emotionally invested, and you need to be able to control your emotions when it comes to sex. I think it's so real. We all have heard of the book Think and Grow Rich, right? Napoleon Hill wrote that book, and it's about, each chapter is about, how to develop your mind so that you become, you attract wealth and you become a prosperous person. There's a book on faith, there's a book on belief, but there's a book, there's a chapter in that book on the transmutation of sex. And what that chapter is talking about is taking the emotion and the energy you put towards sex and putting that in the development of your career or your business or your profession. And I mean, it's a powerful chapter. And he says in that chapter, most people are not able to do that until they're over 40. Because, you just can't control your emotions. You can't control, you like, oh man, I see that, I want that. Let me go pursue it. Or I couldn't say no, I can't turn it down. Yeah, you can, but I think that's absolutely powerful. And but there's a book, y'all. I wanted to drop a book. There's a book, I don't know if y'all heard of this. It's called How to Talk to Your Child About Sex.
Interesting.
By Linda and Richard. It's a couple, Linda and Richard Iyer. So check that out. It's on Amazon.
How to Talk to Your Child About Sex.
How to Talk to Your Child About Sex. I have, this is a book actually we used to recommend when I would do these presentations with Roderick Glover. Y'all remember Rod back in the day, and we did these shows about abstinence and all this stuff. So, but apparently, so this is a good book, and it's real easy to read too. But How to Talk to Your Child About Sex. Hey, how to do it.
Yeah, it's a challenge, and I think it's okay for it to be uncomfortable with parents. But just because it's uncomfortable don't mean you don't do it.
Right.
I mean, because you can't get mad if your child does something that you didn't have a conversation with them about, but they had to figure it out on their own. I remember, Lord have mercy, when I had sex the first time.
Oh, tell us about it, Timbo.
All of my good 10 seconds. It was about 10 seconds. And I was so
10
excited.
seconds for real?
10 seconds.
Did you even actually have sex? Maybe you didn't.
Well, I did something. I was moving. But I tell you what, I was so excited.
Oh my God.
I had reached manhood in my head.
Oh gosh.
I went home, and Dad used to have this little chest, and he would sit on his chest and take his socks, shoes off, and everything. And I went in their room. Guess what I did today?
Oh no!
And then Dad's sitting over here by the closet. Mom, she's always sitting up in the bed doing her work and everything.
And you were 18?
I was 18.
He was grown, as he said. He said, I was an
Grown.
adult. I'm thinking like 26. I was like, bro.
Nah, I was 18. I said, guess what I did today? He said, what? I had sex.
Oh man.
And it was definitely quiet. Then it dawned on me.
In the world?
Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
But you know what, Timbo? What's so really beautiful about that moment? There's something very beautiful because the fact that you felt comfortable enough to go into your parents' room and not even bust into their room and say, I had sex. That's beautiful. That means that you were raised in an environment where you felt safe enough to share that information. I'm telling you, a lot of people aren't raised in those environments to say, I had sex and I want to talk about it. And then even go further and talk about even more in depth, like things they did or what they're attracted to. Like, I mean, conversations like this have to be had with parents. It brings us closer, I think, as family. So I think that's beautiful that you were able to do that.
I didn't think about it like that, of course, in the moment. I just remember looking at Cheryl, my mom's face, and looking at my dad, and Dad had to look like, you crazy.
What did they say though? Because if my child said that, I would be like, how do you know you had sex? What happened?
You know what?
You may have been in the bathroom by yourself. You know what I'm saying? How you know you had sex? There's a difference.
I remember this pregnant pause, and then I remember looking at their faces, and then I realized, wait a minute, that I shouldn't have done that. I didn't think this through. And so Dad, took me in my room, and we sat down, and he didn't ask about the experience or anything, but because I think what he didn't want to do is have me feel like I'm applauding my behavior. Like, well, tell me about it. No, I didn't go that route. He just explained and reiterated again, when you have sex, you need to wait till you're married. There's so much you don't understand. But if you can't contain yourself, you need to really make sure you have his word, condom. He just reiterated that. And I didn't have, I think there was a part of me that kind of understood, but like Billy said earlier pertaining to this book, that draw is so strong, you really don't know how to fight that thing off.
Yeah.
You don't have an understanding. People say, well, I can say no. No, you have to keep yourself out of certain situations. And so I've told my son now, even at 10, he's not even thank the Lord, he's not even thinking that way. But I'm saying, don't put yourself in a position. Just recently, over the weekend, and Billy, you may have heard about this, a young man was shot, 15 years old, on his porch. Football player, freshman. From what everybody's saying, that he was on, the coach was on the news, was shot by shot by another student. And they were trying to figure out why was he shot? I mean, he's not a bad kid, his grades were good, he's playing football, It was over a girl. Over a girl. They found out the guy that shot him, he was 15. The kid, I think, was 14 that got shot. Found out that the girl liked this football player. The kid that shot him, apparently, from what I read in the news statement, was that he thought the girl was his girlfriend, but the girl said she wasn't his girlfriend. She wasn't dating anybody. But they got the number and found out that the girl was supposed to meet up with the boy or something like this to have sex. Got the guy's phone, lured him outside. And so he's standing outside on the porch waiting on the girl to come, thinking he's going to have sex. And the guys come by and shoot him. And my wife was talking about this in the car. And I told my son, I said, this is why we have conversations about sex.
Yeah.
This is why we have conversations about the circle of people that you're around. You have to make certain choices because they can be life or death choices. Now, when we were growing up, I wouldn't have even thought remotely anything about somebody coming out and shooting me over a girl. Well, people doing that now. That's what they're doing. because of the hormones, because of your emotions. So the kid that shot was jealous, he was upset. Now we can take it all the way back to when he was 2 or 5, and maybe he had some issues at home. But now this is how he's responding with those emotions.
Well, also, I mean, in situations like that, we also have to discuss that he thought this girl belonged to him.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That's no matter if you having sex or you dating or whatever, people don't belong to people. Even when you get married, in my opinion, people don't belong. People become possessive of other people. And this child thought this other young lady, a child, belonged to him, and that no one else, she can't talk to him. She can't, but I mean, I guess, I don't know. This is my first time hearing this story, but if she lured this other child out to get hurt, and maybe she didn't know what was going to happen, or maybe she did, but you know, I think when we talk about sex, we also have to talk about everything around it. It's just not about the physical touch.
Yeah.
You know, it is about the feelings and the hormones, but it's about possessiveness. It's about all that good stuff. Addiction. Yeah. You know, people don't belong to you. Can't just say, well, you can't talk, I'm gonna kill somebody. Wow, that's so sad. That's
because
really
because
sad.
even you know, like I was saying, like we learn about sex from our friends and at school, and I can just remember my friends in high school bringing tapes or DVD. They were VHS tapes back then, of porn tapes, and I mean we used to pass them around to each other, you know,
Wow.
and we used to watch this porn all the time, you know. So it got to the point where I couldn't even go a week without watching porn. You know what I mean? So that becomes, and that became an addiction I had to break. You know what I mean? But I think that what happens is, I bet you, I mean, there's and we know this now, but I don't know what the statistic is, but there's a lot of grown men walking around here addicted to porn, you know, and that can be an addiction, just like cocaine or alcohol or anything else. That could hurt your career, or hurt your marriage, and impact your life like that. So, you know, we really have to be careful. And that's why sex education is so key, you know?
Yeah.
So for the parents out there, it's like I'm even talking to myself now. I'm like, I need to have a weekly discussion, you know, with my son about sex. And then when his friends start coming over or hanging out or whatever, we're going to talk about it too. Because at the end of the day, you know, at least they got a safe space or safe place they know they can go to, or hear the truth, and have confidence that, hey, let me bounce this off of my dad, or let me bounce this off of Mr. McCleskey, you know, to see what's up. I tell you one thing I do, you know, this was pre-COVID, but, you know, being a youth counselor at church, you know, we travel to the youth conference and we go on these trips and stuff. And I would always have 4 boys with me, you know, my son and 3 other boys generally. And I would talk to them about sex, especially if we were in the hotel room and something came on the TV, you know what I mean? But I just think it's our responsibility. You know, we got to, because man, they going to get it from social media and school. I'm here to tell you, and it's going to be 90% wrong.
Yeah.
A really dear friend of mine, this guy named Tyron Davis, he's a sex educator, and he definitely encourages parents to have conversations on a regular with their children about sex, and be open to talk about everything, you know, because like you said, you know, if you don't want them to get it from their friends or the world, you want to be able to talk to them. So I think it's beautiful. And I know I use the word beautiful a lot, but I do think it's beautiful that you guys feel so comfortable to talk to your sons.
Yeah. Do you talk to Flower about sex?
You know, Flower,
because I've heard some stories about Flower.
Yeah, you know, I just let her live her natural life. I had this dog named Spinach stand with me, and Spinach wasn't fixed, and I'm so glad my dog was, because I'm pretty sure that if she wasn't, she'd be pregnant, and I'd be auctioning off her. No, I wouldn't auction them off. But no, Flower's she shows her flower off and shares it with every dog she meets.
Yes.
You know what? I remember when I was trying to help Rowan understand words and letters and things like that. And Mom said one time, you know, when you're in the car and you see like a McDonald's sign, just say, look at that. And you know, tell me what those letters are and what does that spell? And there's always these opportunities to teach. And I think, you said one thing, Stacy, and I just have to go back to it. Your friend said, talk about it often. And people might think often is once every 6 months or once every time something come up in life. But it could be weekly.
Mm-hmm.
It could be every other day. Because there's always something going on social media, right? There's always something.
An opportunity. Yeah.
There's always and it doesn't have to be about the lay down in the bed having sex, but there's a conversation that has to be had.
Right.
Like I was talking to my son this morning, Bill, when you was doing the devotion with the kids, about all these different African-American people. And we talked about the Luby Center and the gentleman who was the attorney. We talked about Kamala Harris, the first African-American vice president and Asian vice president. And he said, wasn't she the first woman to? All of that. You have to have a conversation about things to put all of the kinds of right stuff in their mind. Because this world is so bad and messed up. The desire for the wrong stuff is strong. It's just so strong. And that's what they're going to be attracted to. Not because they're just bad kids. No, by nature, we want just what our physical body desires. So
it creates an appetite too, not to cut you off, but it creates an appetite for it. So you're right. If we plant other seeds in them, it's going to create the appetite for that.
And I think you have to have, so you got to have something to talk about every day. One of the things my wife told me, she teaches young children, and most of these young kids come from environments where there may not be a two-parent home or there just may be some challenges. And she can tell when the kids are deficient in certain things. So she asks a lot of questions. So when my son on the weekend goes to his mom, when she picks him up, normally I'm still working, and she just asks him questions. She'll now be on the phone. She asked questions. So how was your day? What did y'all talk about? What happened? What did they say in school? What did this person? What's this kid's name? Do you know this kid's parents? Have you talked to his parents? Da 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 da. And he just throws up all this information, but you figure out who your kids are.
Yes, and that is important. I think for me, specifically speaking about sex, like I craved for mom and dad to ask me questions. But a part of me, and maybe I've created a narrative in my mind, was I felt like they were afraid to ask me questions, and so when I became an adult, I became an oversharer. And then when I became an oversharer and certain things were rejected, I hid. I became invisible and made myself small. It's funny, I started therapy on Friday, and that's one thing we talked about was like sometimes when I do go home, I make myself invisible to fit inside of a box that I was never created to fit inside of. But anyway, that's a conversation for another time. But yeah, I think questions are great. They are great.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. So what are our takeaways for the day? Stacey,
you mentioned I was not taking notes. Usually you deal with the takeaways, but you mentioned that wonderful book. Can you mention it again?
Yeah, How to Talk to Your Kids About Sex. And that is by Linda and Richard Eyre. Hope I'm saying their last name right. It's Eyre. How do you talk to your kids about sex? But no, that's a good resource. And then I just think another big takeaway was, as I think Tim and I mentioned, we felt like we had a safe place to get the right information, even if we didn't want to talk to them, or if we did, we know we were going to get the right information. And so were our friends if they were around. Because it takes a village.
Yeah.
It takes a village.
And I think another piece that we haven't touched on, you have some listeners who may have, they're single parents. And, Bill, you and I, for a good minute, we were single parents. And sometimes as a single parent, you don't want your kid to push you away. You want your kid to feel comfortable in talking to you. So you got to start early. You know what? It's okay to tell your children that you messed up in life too. Sometimes I think what we do, we spend so much time trying to be this perfect parent that our kids think they can't afford to mess up because they got a perfect parent. No, right. I tell my son, look, I messed up over here. Yeah. And I had to, get this right. but this is one of the reasons why I don't want you doing this. And here's
Right.
how you manage it. Here's how you handle it. And your
Yeah.
kids see you as a real person.
Right.
Now they feel like if they make a mistake, well, I wonder how my dad would have handled it.
Mhm.
Because you're real to them.
Or when they make a mistake, they willing to come to you.
Yeah.
Because they
That's
know
it.
you weren't perfect versus try to hide it and make your own
That's
decision
right.
without their help.
And those of you who have a sense of faith and you believe in what the Bible says, just remember Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. Just remember that, read it, and recognize, you allow God's word to be what guides your decision making. Sometimes we try to be so smart, and we got some help. Use the help that we got, and I think we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Well, this was a great discussion, y'all. I'm so glad y'all, were open to talk about sex.
Yes.
Sex. What, I wonder if sex was an acronym for something before. I don't know. I'm thinking.
Wow.
Was it an acronym, or is it an acronym for something else? I don't know.
Yeah. I wonder what the X would be, but yeah, okay.
Sexual? I don't know. Anyway, thank y'all for joining us this week on Them Three Podcast. I hope you got something out of this lovely conversation with my wonderful brothers.
Yes. Oh, and from you. As always, this podcast is brought to you by FedUpGroup.com. Tim McCleskey site. How to get out of debt with the money you already have. I'm gonna get it together one day.
You are one day.
We got AnastasiaMcCleskey.com, and also follow her on Instagram and TikTok, and BillMcCleskey.com. Check us out.
Yeah.
See what we got going on. And man, hey, make sure you send in a question too. Go to the website, them3podcast.com. Everything's spelled out. them3podcast.com. Submit a question, subscribe, tell your friends, and we'll see y'all next week. Holla!
Hey.
Peace and blessings.